Good morning. Delighted to welcome you all to this edition of Business Swansea's Power Hour, focused on cybersecurity and what every business here in Swansea needs to know about cybersecurity to protect their micro and SME enterprise. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Steve Bain, Managing Director of Pisys, and also Dan Evans from the team at Pisys. Steve is a founding member of Pisys from 2003. Has led the business for the last 23 years, is now SME Business of the Year for Swansea-based, announced in 2026. So congratulations to you, Steve, and your team.
Thank you.
Pisys 27001 accredited, certified, also G Cloud members. So I have a huge amount of accreditation and qualification behind this subject. So Steve and Dan, I'm delighted to welcome you both here to this Power Hour, and look forward to seeing your presentation from here. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ed, and welcome everyone. Nice to have the opportunity to talk about our favourite pastime in Pisys, which is cybersecurity. I'm going to keep my talk to quite sort of high level about how it sort of affects businesses of any size, and Dan's going to get a little bit more technical. So we shall push on. I've been, as Ed said, Managing Director of Pisys for 23 years now, and obviously cyber has changed the footprint of what we do for IT, obviously looking after businesses throughout the UK. So I shall get straight on with it. Right, so let's start with this moment. I'm sure we've all felt this at times. When you got an email and it didn't just quite feel right. It might have been from a supplier, might have been from Microsoft, but just enough for you to have that little bit of doubt in your mind. And you pause, and then you carry on with your day and you don't really think about it. But that pause is the moment when we see most of the cyber attacks happening. That's exactly where they operate. They're hoping that you click on something or you make a mistake that will allow them to gain access to your systems. And 43% of all UK businesses have suffered a cyber breach or an attack in the last year. That is the official figures, but I actually think it's a lot higher than that. Mainly because people, they get embarrassed. They don't want to report that it's happened to them. Unfortunately, with some attacks, they'll have no other option but to report it. But in general, I would say that figure is probably more near 60–70%. And this is the UK government's data, and as we know, it's not an opinion, although I do say that the numbers are definitely higher than that, but that is what is happening right now in the UK. So it can happen to anyone that you work with, suppliers, customers. One thing we do see with suppliers is third-party attacks where they get in via your supplier. So we've seen it with legal companies where the estate agent has actually been hacked, and they inject things in between the communications going back and forth between the legal company and themselves. And that's unfortunately when businesses get caught out. That's quite a big thing at the moment. Again, all these things, vendors, software companies, cloud providers, everyone there has the potential of being hacked and then in turn bringing it to your front door, as they say. So if you know 20 businesses, statistically 8 of them were hit last year. But as I say, I think it's probably a lot higher than that. And it isn't just big corps in London. In fact, we see probably coming from more smaller businesses because they're easier to hit than a corporate. Yeah, so corporates will already have probably huge cybersecurity in place. Not all of them, because we've seen a lot of big names in the past year being hacked. Marks and Spencers, Jaguar, Land Rover, etc. A lot of them being hacked by very silly things and bad processes. So as we've seen, it's not just big corps that this happens to. If quite the opposite, really, sometimes. Phishing attacks, that seems to be the bulk of where they start from. Someone receives an email, makes a mistake with it, comes down to sometimes human training, and they click on it, and unfortunately that starts the chain going. As it says there, one click, one login, and that's it. And this, of course, is what our new normal looks like now. So it can come from a supplier. These ones sometimes can be obvious, sometimes they're not. So Microsoft update your password, and now we're seeing the rise of AI now starting to really become involved in cybersecurity, and the bad actors are using AI to write and basically duplicate what you look like to fool people. So it happens daily. Of course, it doesn't just come from email phishing, spear phishing. So they target your emails using your name, role in the company. LinkedIn is a big one for that. Dan will tell you, he often finds when we're doing audits for people, he can find amazing things online about you that often leads to spear phishing attack. Whaling, when they want to go for the owners of or the directors of the company, they really focus on those. Again, we've seen this one before quite a few times where, well, I'd hope people don't fall for that now, but a lot of the time where if someone's asking you in your business for £500 of Amazon vouchers, you want to be questioning that. You want to have a phone call conversation with them, not just accept it. Another big one that's happening at the moment is invoice fraud. So the hackers will get in that chain and change your invoice, change the bank details on it. Again, happens daily, and people fall for it. And again, real emails are copied and resent with a malicious link, and it just takes that one click, and there we go. We're hacked again. So again, something that's massive. Dan will talk more about that probably later, but AI phishing is really on the increase at the moment. Of course, most of these breaches do involve people being tricked. It's not necessarily someone trying to get in through your firewall with, sophisticated tools. It's just something that looks normal, and they know that that's potentially what you're going to fall for. So it's not people sitting there for hours trying to get through your firewall. It's a simple email. Here's some other avenues that we're seeing now. So smishing, scam messages via text, voice, with AI voice now, that's becoming quite popular. QR codes. I'm sure you've probably... So something that happened up in Scotland was someone placed a QR code on a car parking machine in Scotland and actually made a huge amount of money off of it from people scanning the code and paying him and not the car park. So it can happen literally anywhere. Social media, again, something with social media, you do have to be careful what you share on there, because again, people looking at it, they can find out a lot about your friends, family, and use that to their advantage. This is something we're seeing now as well: search engine optimization poisoning, fake websites appearing, and of course public Wi-Fi. I think, Dan, have you got something mentioned for VPNs in your presentation, I think, shortly?
Yeah, I do believe so.
Cool. Okay, so I won't go into that anymore. So this is what it kind of looks like from an incident point of view. Staff can't log in, files won't open. They think maybe it's a small issue, maybe their server's down, something's not quite right, but they'll either, well, who do they call? Will they call their MSP if they have one, or is it someone in their office that they'll rely on? But by 9:15, they're maybe thinking, hang on, this doesn't seem right. The server's up and working. And by this time, the ransomware's doing its thing. Things stop, money stops flowing, and the downtime starts to cost the business money. Now they get the ransom note. Their data's already encrypted, and if they haven't got things in place, that can cause a business real problems. Of course, by 2 o'clock, things are getting bad, reputation's at risk for the company, and by 5 o'clock, if they've not recovered by then, it's become a serious business issue. And that's when the real question starts. So do we report to the ICO? Well, depending on what it is and what's been breached, the ICO on their website has a form which you can fill in, and it will guide you as to whether you need to report to them or not. So follow their guidelines. The next thing will be, what evidence do we have? So if you haven't got certain things in place, you might not have any evidence or have any idea of where that's actually started from, who clicked on it. With our tools that we use, we can see exactly where it started right the way through to where it ended. What do you tell your customers? Well, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, a company ended up, their emails got compromised and they sent out quite a lot of emails. And at that point, we got involved and helped them stop it happening. But their customers already knew they'd had a breach. So at that point, they have to send out something to the customers to tell them. Depending on what cyber insurance you have, they won't save you, but they will potentially help you after the event, which is not really where you want to be with cyber. Okay, so time lost. I won't go into this slide too much, but it's going to cost you either way. Whatever happens, if you get hit, it's going to cost you a lot of time. It's going to be a huge amount of stress in the business. And, you know, what we see with people where, because obviously, as I say, we can see where the email started and who's clicked on it. And you have to be careful with your staff, because it can really upset them that you know, they've been tricked into falling for something, which, you know, anyone could fall for, but perhaps it's just unlucky that they've clicked on that day, and it's fallen on them, and it can really affect them personally that they've made a mistake. But obviously, the real cost is, you know, into the billions. Again, I think that number is probably a lot higher than that, because not everyone reports, and it isn't just fraud, it's what happens to your business. Everything's affected all the way through. So what actually stops? Well, you're probably going to stop being able to make payments, and I don't know if you're compromised, if it'd be a wise thing to log in and try and make payments at that point. You would certainly need to get your system checked right through. All your orders are going to be on hold. Your staff don't know what to do. If it's an email breach, they're going to stop. Customers are wondering what's happening, and ultimately your cash stops moving. Insurance actually paid out 197 million in cyber insurance claims, and they certainly help after. And just to make it clear, I would highly recommend that every business has cyber insurance. We work with some good companies that can provide that, but it ain't gonna keep you safe. So when you ask for cyber insurance, they'll ask you to fill out a form. If you get that wrong, we're seeing that happening these days, that can actually mean that they won't pay out. So it's important that you have things in place. Plus, if you have good tools in place, you'll actually find you'll get a lower cyber premium. So as it says there, busy people get targeted, and that's exactly how the bad actors work. And it's not about blaming, it's they want to get to the people that are going to make the difference. So if you're to look at any company, again, you can see who gets targeted in our systems quite easily. Finance directors, CEOs, they're the ones that are getting targeted. But they'll also look perhaps on LinkedIn for who's in the accounts department there. Okay, it's Mary in accounts. And once they get her details, well, they can start a nice campaign against her and pretend that they're the CEO or the finance director looking for payments to be made. So there's lots of ways that they can get in and target your business. So the gap, in a lot of small businesses, no one actually knows what to do when it happens. They don't know if their backups work. I'd hope they would in this day and age, and most systems have a way of doing that. But if they haven't had that conversations, it does leave quite a big gap. What do they do? How do they get out of it? And it can cause obviously big exposure for their business. when it's a micro business, you know, let's be honest, we've all been there at one point. You are responsible for everything. You know, we don't, when you're running a small business, you don't just necessarily have one job, you might have a few. So it's important that if anything like this has happened, you've got to have a plan in place to say, okay, if this happens, this is what we're going to do, or at least this is the company we're going to talk with to help us get through that. And obviously, as your business grows, the IT risk certainly grows with it, and we see that a lot. You start off a small business and the next thing you're at 20, 30 users. Well, that takes a lot more management. So it's important that you deal with the right people, or at least if you're going to bring it in-house, have someone qualified that can do that sort of level of protection for you. So not to plug us too much, but this is what we do. We give regular awareness training. Dan does our webinars for us. He does phishing training. He loves trying to challenge the business, don't you, Dan? You like sending out phishing emails and see who's going to respond to them. That's always quite interesting. You need multi-factor authentication. This is my big thing. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't stop everything, but without it, you leave yourself really wide open. Multi-factor you should have on everything, your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook, your Twitter, certainly your email or anything you use in the business, multi-factor across the you know, every device that you have. Make sure your backups are tested. We operate a system where there won't just be local, but there'll be local, encrypted, and off-site, and at times in 2 different sites, depending on the need of the customer. Obviously, we have an incident plan. As an ISO 27001 company, we get tested on that every 6 months, and it's really interesting to go through it, because they do throw different scenarios at you, and it's really good to practice those. And of course, you need to make sure that people in your business understand and have the right conversations with them. That is absolutely crucial, that people understand that. So just to wrap up for my bit before Dan gets a little bit more technical, I asked the question, in your business, who would take control? And if you don't have the answer to that, then that would be a great conversation with us. Or if you'd like to just meet me for a coffee and a chat, I can help you and signpost you in the right direction to make sure your business is covered. And I will now hand over to Dan.
So yeah, as a little introduction, guys, I'm Dan. I've been the lead cybersecurity engineer here at Pisys for coming up to 3 years now. And I'm just going to go into a bit more detail on the technical bits, on what we're seeing day to day. So most attacks don't break in, they log in. So you, as a standard person, might log in with your password, authenticator app. An attacker will do the exact same thing. They'll take your session, this be through phishing, and to the system, it looks like a normal login. To chain of failures, it's never a single event. So it starts off, it could be an email or a message, could be an email, hey, I've shared this secure document with you, or it could be a text message, a Royal Mail has delivered your parcel, please verify using this link. You click it, and then obviously the user clicks it, credentials are captured, and then those credentials are typically forwarded to the attacker. Access is gained, movement then happens inside systems, and this can happen for weeks. We've seen attackers monitor for a long time, trying to understand your system, how things behave, and then that's where they'll look. They might look, oh, you've got an acquisition next month. Let's target the ransomware to hit day before there. They know when to hit you and when it hurts the most. So here's entry points we see every day. So email accounts, they're a gold mine of data, invoices, loads of different conversations about business data. Microsoft 365, obviously not just emails, but you have Teams, SharePoint. These are often neglected. There's things, do you know what external shares? Can staff share externally anonymously? Could a hacker log in and share a SharePoint link without you ever knowing? Weak or reused passwords, it's a really understated issue. We're seeing a lot of people just reusing passwords. I highly recommend a password manager where you can. And obviously unpatched devices, now that we've got these big frontier AI models finding every new vulnerability every week, it's really never been so important to make sure your software is up to date. And of course, remote access tools, RDP, like remote desktop, TeamViewer, or AnyDesk, they're abused by attackers and scammers. A lot of them could be fake Microsoft support, and they ask you to connect through TeamViewer or AnyDesk. And it shows the common weaknesses. So as admin rights, this one's huge. A huge amount of people have admin on their main account. What that does and what they can do as well is if they're reusing that password on another device, an attacker could go, I'll use this account. Yeah, so an attacker could get into a machine, then they'll use those credentials that they've found, and they're able to move to another machine in the network just by using those credentials. So it's really important that we limit who has admin control. Again, SharePoint permissions, they're really hard, but they're really important as well. You don't want someone that shouldn't be able to see stuff like a director's folder, anything like that. And then if they were to get breached, an attacker suddenly has access to that folder as well. No VPN, as Steve discussed regarding public Wi-Fi. We're seeing a lot of it at the moment where people can clone Wi-Fi networks. So for example, you could be in the bus station, free bus station Wi-Fi. In reality, that's someone sat there with a device in their backpack, trying to get people to connect to that Wi-Fi and then watching that traffic that's going over that network. MFA not on device or software. The NCSC has recently pushed out guidance regarding a move to passwordless. And this is through passkeys. And I cannot recommend passkeys enough. These are phishing proof. These are keys that are bound to the device, and they cannot be phished, like your standard MFA 6-digit code. That can be phished, unfortunately, but these passkeys can't. I cannot recommend these anymore. So weak security habits, like I said, I really recommend using a password manager. Get that password manager. You just need to remember that long master password to unlock that, and then you can get it to generate super secure passwords, but it's really important that you sort out any recovery methods for that as well. And obviously other security gaps like misconfigurations, disabled protections often get overlooked, and people don't realize what damage they can actually cause. Here's what attackers do once inside. They're typically quiet, deliberate, and they don't want to be detected. So they'll read emails, they'll monitor emails, they'll look at how you speak, how you talk to your colleagues, and then they'll use your account. If they've then spent time looking at how you speak, what language you're using, they're then going to build an email to send to a colleague, hey, can you pay this invoice really quickly, please? And there's no reason to question it. It's come from your email address, it's got your signature, and it's even got the language you typically use. So they could set up hidden rules. We see this a lot with compromises, in where an attacker will get into an account, typically through phishing. And what they'll do then is set up inbox rules to hide any emails from that person. Hey, please don't click this. This is spam. Realizing that perhaps a supplier has been compromised, or they'll set up mail rules if they've then sent phishing emails from that account they've compromised, because suddenly they're going to have a large influxes of responses. Is this spam? Did you intend to send it? And obviously those answers will all get hidden out with those rules. So obviously you've got access to files and data. This is what really matters. You can ask the customer data. This is when we're looking at reporting to the ICO when data has been involved. and we have to be quick in finding out that as well. And obviously they'll move across systems. They could get into an email, but if they get into your OneDrive, could they replace a OneDrive file with a bit of malware? And then when you open your spreadsheet next, are you going to open that spreadsheet? Probably are. So really be careful. That's why antivirus as well as protection for cloud is really important. So why it normally gets unnoticed? A lot of the activity is made to appear as normal activity. They use real accounts. There's no obvious no obvious warning signs, no alerts triggered, and it happens during work hours. They're targeting really busy periods, say for example 9 a.m. when you've just got in, you've got a load of emails to go through, or they're doing it towards the end of day, where you're just trying to get through your emails just to head home. They know what they're doing. They're trying to target you in your moments of weakness. Here's what actually breaks the chain. This is definitely my number one prevention. People awareness. You can have the absolute best security systems in the world, but it all comes down to people's awareness, how they're able to spot it. It's a cat and mouse game between emails getting through filters. So an attack, we're constantly blocking attacks while attackers are constantly trying to find new ways to get through. And you're never going to have a security system that is absolute foolproof and will never let any phishing in. So I cannot stress how important staff training is. Obviously, then we've got the controls, MFA on absolutely everything. I wish I could show you my Authenticator app. I probably have about 50 different codes in there. I use different keys. Absolutely everything I have is on MFA. Reason being that it's so important is you might have a good password, but is the company that you've used that password on elsewhere 100% safe? Are you confident that they won't be involved in a breach that results in that exposed password? Because that's all it takes, is that exposed password with no MFA. That's the account gone. Monitoring, really, really important. Highly advised monitoring. Yes, as I said, you can have the best security in the world, but you need to know when things have gone wrong. So monitoring, preventative as well, perhaps looking and monitoring for alerting on phishing emails or alike. There are tools that can use AI to analyze emails like that. And here's one extra step that stops attacks. It's MFA. Like I said, that one password, all it takes is that company that you've used it elsewhere to get compromised and that password's exposed. You'll end up in a list where you'll have constant attempts. Myself, my personal accounts have constant attempts because I was unfortunately involved in a data breach by a company. And it is constant. It's not a matter of when, or sorry, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. Like I said, with the passkeys, not all MFA is equal. So some MFA, most common types, you'll either have a 6-digit code that you just need to enter in the login. Some might ask you to do an approval notification, but the overall best ones is overall just passkeys and those approval notifications, and those just can't be phished. They're device bound, so things like Windows Hello for Business, I urge you to set that up if you haven't already got a PIN and use that for all authentication, like I said here now. So Windows Hello, it's really nice and easy to set up. If you haven't got it set up, I'd advise to speak to your IT already, because yeah, like as I said, it's phishing proof. So even if you were to click it, enter your details, it can't be stolen like that. So there's 24/7 protection, real people, real action. So obviously we need 24/7 monitoring. When that happens, suspicious behavior is flagged. The threat is then isolated. We'll typically do this, especially with 365 accounts. We'll lock the account down, revoke any sessions so the attacker signed out the account, and then that's where we'll begin our investigation then. And then we'll do audits and see what happened and what caused it. Okay, so then we go on to the Security Operations Centre, SOC. So it's expert people, UK-based SOC in Swansea. It's a rapid response, and we're using AI and human expertise to tackle these as more AI is in the scene being used by the attackers themselves. And obviously clear reporting on what happened. For backups, we recommend the 3-2-1 backup standard. I think Steve glossed over this briefly. So that's 3 copies of your data on 2 different media types and 1 offside copy. This protects you. If you have backups, what happens if you have a fire in the building? Are those backups gone? Do you have a plan for this? Do you know how long your backups take to restore as well? So I recommend regular backup tests, automated and manual, verifying that the data's there and there's no corruption happening. Obviously, perform recovery tests. Sure, you might have backups on everything, but do you know if you were to be hit by ransomware, how long do those backups take to restore? How long are you going to be out of business for? So obviously review and document, and this is why we have things like a BCDR plan. So then we can plan ahead for any of these disasters, not discoveries. So then we've got training that reflects real attacks. This is probably the most important one, is phishing simulation. You send phishing emails to staff, and that gives us reporting on whether they've looked at it, clicked it, or even entered their credentials in, and then that can be automatically assigned training to them then as well, and then can take action from that then, and especially maybe have a chat with those if they're repeat offenders, for example. So then obviously users interact by either clicking, opening, or reporting it, and then obviously with the training, there's short training videos that we do, and then over time then we can monitor performance, see how everyone's done, and see how we stand as a business in terms of security. See, over time, staff become aware of these tests, and they start to keep an eye out on these sort of emails. This is what resilience looks like. It's number 1, training. Your people are the first line of defense. We build awareness and change behavior. MFA, I cannot keep repeating that. It's so important. Monitoring, you want the preventative measures, but you need to know when something has happened as soon as possible. And obviously backups and ensuring they're tested. And response, if the worst happens, respond fast to complaint and get you back to business. So if this happened tomorrow, do you know who would take control? I think that is all.
Bit more technical than me, but interesting when you see the flow of how an attack actually works. I thought that was worth doing, and Dan is very much on the front line. He runs our cyber team, so he is very much seeing these things every day. So thank you, Dan. Appreciate that.
But thank you to both of you. It's been really helpful and incredibly insightful, really, to understand the scale and breadth of challenges that are facing businesses. So I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to ask, if I may, but I just want to open up to other people here on the call this morning, whether you'd like to ask any questions of Dan and Steve in particular, or whether you're just happy for me to ask. Matt, would you like to?
Yeah, you mentioned password managers a couple of times, and obviously the password manager by definition is like the keys to the kingdom. Yep. So what's the best way of making sure the password manager itself is secure? Because if they can access that, obviously by definition, they can access everything that you've got. So you mentioned having a long, complicated password. Is it as simple as that, or is there more you can do to protect that?
Personally, I use NordPass, and the flow to logging in and accessing my passwords for that is I'll log in with my Nord account, which is my email, password, MFA. But then to unlock the NordPass application, I then need my master password. So only need that master password. Initially, on the first login, you'll have probably about 3-4 layers of authentication, but then on daily use, you just need that master password, and that's how it kind of protects you. Does that kind of make sense in that?
Yeah. Thank you.
There are just so many apps in our day-to-day lives that we have to use, and some of them will have different levels of security authentication as well, so it's just difficult to keep track of all, isn't it? I just wanted to mention we're funded for the next 3 years by the UK Local Growth Fund, and that growth fund is to support startups, so pre-revenue conceptual businesses going all the way through early stage and then into growth as well, or innovation. So we have a whole range of business stock that we support at Swansea Council through our local growth fund. I just wanted to ask you if I was one of those members of that business stock that was looking to set up a business on the first occasion, and parts of our local growth fund, our pre-start grant, for example, can be used to fund setup costs, and obviously some of the services that you're providing here could be included within that. But if you had to prioritize 3 actions for an organization that's got a limited budget, and I appreciate you've already highlighted what good looks like, and your 3-2-1s, your training, MFAs, monitoring, backups, response. But what 3 actions for an organization with a limited budget would you absolutely say are critical must-haves in a business?
Well, I would say the 24/7 monitoring. That's probably the biggest game changer. So many things would probably go undetected if you didn't have monitoring in place. And obviously, if you don't know, you can't remediate. I think that's the core one. Steve, that was my main point. I don't know if you want to elaborate on any other.
Yeah, and just to reiterate on the monitoring thing, it's not that expensive to have that in place, to have a good MDR in place that looks at your either Office 365 or Google Workspace. It's not that expensive to have that in place, because the breaches we see to start in likes of Microsoft 365. If you have that in place, those alerts will happen quickly and lock them down for you quickly as well. Obviously, I would suggest that you talk to an IT company that's professional and been around for a fair while, so that they can advise you, because once your first person is in place, you just replicate that for every new user you have. So when in the companies we look after, when someone joins, they will get exactly the same protection as the person from day one. So it's important. There's probably more than 3 things, if I'm honest, Ed, that needs to be done. But certainly taking advice on that would be a crucial part of starting out in business, especially if we all rely on email now, and if that isn't protected, that can end your business quite badly and very quickly if you lose control of that.
Thank you both. And are there specific things that you also need to look out for in your insurance policy as well? You're taking out an insurance policy for the first time. Steve, you mentioned that 179 million pounds worth of insurance claims a year.
Sure.
So how influential are the insurers with startups and small businesses in covering cybersecurity?
They're going to ask you for every, you're going to have business insurance anyway. So cyber is normally a bolt onto that, or some will be part of that. It's crucial that when you're answering those questions, that you tell the truth. You don't say you have something you haven't got. It's absolutely crucial that you say, I don't have this, I don't have that, because at least they know the risk they're insuring. If you say that you have something that you don't have, then obviously if something happens, they're going to ask you to evidence it. So it's crucial with insurance that you obviously tell the truth. No matter what you're insuring, you need to tell the truth. And if you're not sure, so a lot of our clients every year, they send the insurance form to us. So we fill it out with exactly everything they have in place, the monitoring, the endpoint detection and response. We put all that into the form, so the insurance company knows exactly what they're insuring.
Okay, thank you. And just staying with insurance, the obviously a common form of attacks are obviously ransomware. Current advice on paying ransoms?
No.
Just yeah,
never.
Yeah.
Never.
It happens a lot. You hear it on the personal level as well, but on a business level, it happens a lot. So it's speak to your insurer in the first instance, or a specialist like yourselves.
Well, I mean, probably speak to a specialist first of all. As I say, the insurance. I mean, let's be honest, right? We don't want to you don't want to be in that situation, and this is my message: is don't get into that situation in the first place. Have as much protection as possible. Like Dan spoke about the 3-to-1 backups. All the backup systems that we use are encrypted. So, and another point that Dan made is how long do the backups take to restore? So, you probably saw we're a Datto Platinum partner. So, on some of the networks that we look after, they have a box that actually does a backup constant. So if anything was to happen, that can be restored and actually even run from that box if required. So it's important that let's try not to get into that situation, because if it does happen and you don't have the things to restore, your backups to restore, then you've got a major problem. I'm not sure what the stats are off the top of my head, but I think they say that businesses go out of business within 6 months of a ransomware which they've not been able to recover from. So it's quite serious. You lose all your data, your invoices, what work you've done for people, then you can be in serious trouble.
I'm just thinking about some of the grant recipients we've had over the past few years. So, for example, a retailer that's set up where their systems will be mainly payment mechanisms using outsource providers, and so don't actually hold necessary data themselves, but and so actually may not think there's such a big risk to cybersecurity. But what are the sort of biggest misconceptions that people have with regards to cybersecurity?
Well, I think, third parties, you should look at your suppliers. So as part of the ISO 27001 process, we actually ask all our suppliers how compliant they are. Do they have it? I mean, I'll be honest, if for us, we wouldn't be able to do business with certain suppliers if they didn't have 27001 in place and are able to prove that they are as secure as they can be. So I think that's really important, Ed.
That just leads me to say a massive thank you.
Ed, sorry, just one quick thing. I meant to say it, should have said it earlier. We do give a free cyber audit, and for anyone new starting out in business, we'd be more than happy, as I say, just to have a chat with us over a coffee, and we can give them advice. There's no cost to it, just to give them that advice starting out to make sure they're as secure as they can be from day one. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I'm glad you said that. We talk about building a resilient business stock in Swansea, the local authority. In fact, across the South West Wales area, having resilience in our business stock. It is really important because, as you know, how long you've been here in Swansea, Steve, the longer you're here, the more relationships you form, the more integral you become to the business community. And just protecting that is a really important factor. So making sure we hold on to people and to organizations. So what you do there is vital to that. And yeah, would advocate for any startup really, or any business that's got any concerns about the cybersecurity to have a look at it straight away. So it's great that you offer that free opportunity for them to have a chat with you. So thank you. So on that note, thank you very much, Dan, Steve, for the time and content that you've shared with us this morning. That's greatly valued, much appreciated. This has been brought to you by the UK Local Growth Fund. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.